Welcome, Venerable.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Dr. Nicholas Thanissaro, coming to you today from Azusa in Southern California. Thanks very much to Ron and Amy for a glowing introduction and to Michelle for a soothing set of stretches just now. I hope everyone's feeling relaxed and comfortable, which is perfect for the practice of meditation. And in this connection, I'd like to lead you through a short session of meditation. For those of you who never meditated before, I'd like to explain that with meditation, we're working with our attention or our awareness rather than with our brain. Our awareness can get caught up in the distractions around us, but with meditation, we would like to gather our mind back from the world around us and allow it to focus instead within the space of our body. Meditation is basically any method that will allow you to bring your attention back within yourself. And meditation methods differ as to the sort of anchor used to keep the mind in place within the body. For those of you starting out, I would like to recommend a visualization of something bright like a picture of the full moon or a candle, which you can imagine within yourself as a way to keep the mind in place. If your mind wanders off, then you just bring it back again to the brightness inside you. Another thing which people often complain about is having an excess of thoughts in the mind. Sometimes you find those thoughts become less by themselves as you're meditating, but if that's not the case, then you need to encourage those thoughts to dissipate a little bit more quickly. And there is something known as a mantra, which, as you can see on the slide, there's the word Samma Arahang. It's words which you repeat silently to yourself when meditating in order to disperse any thoughts from the mind. You hear the sound of the mantra coming up as if the bright object in the center is the source of the sound. For those of you who are worried about foreign words or having to put a spell put on you or the meaning of the word Samarahang, it is a pure state of mind achieved in the proper way. Where exactly should we focus when we're meditating? Well, there's a special place down in the center of our abdomen where more or less on the level of the diaphragm. And you can see a number 7 on the diagram. You notice that if you take your deepest breath, then generally when the breath turns around between the in-breath and the out-breath, it is actually the same point. So this is the most efficient place for us to focus the mind. In fact, anywhere in that general area will tend to be good. Whatever feels right for you will work well. And for those who are not visual by nature, those who are more touchy-feely, it may be that you can feel that point within yourself rather than seeing it. So if you find that your feeling is more accurate as a way of locating the center, then just go with that. Generally, we don't just jump straight into meditation, but if I go back to this slide again, the first 5 minutes, we relax the body and do a body scan to make sure our body is relaxed. And after that, we spend a further 5 minutes to relax our state of mind. So now that you know the theory, at this point, we're ready to do some meditation for about 30 minutes, which will include lighting a tea light or a candle partway through if you have one handy at this point. So if you'd like to settle yourself in a comfortable position for your meditation practice today, close your eyes very gently, breathing deeply to yourself, letting go of any tensions in your body, all the way from the top of your head, right the way down to the tips of your toes. Allow the muscles of your face to become soft, taking care that even the way you close your eyes is as gentle as possible. Bear in mind that the muscles in your eyes are the most sensitive in your body. And if you can close your eyes gently, then the whole of your body will relax in the same way. So allow that wave of relaxation to pass down from your face, through your neck and shoulders, both arms, to the tips of your fingers, and through the whole of your torso, chest, trunk, and abdomen, both legs, all the way down to your feet and your toes, so that you feel awake, alert, but also relaxed, energized by this participation in the special virtual full moon meditation, which we have come together to share today. Especially the joy and happiness of seeing old friends from previous full moon meditations, even if we are seeing them online today, but just to see one another after a whole month or 2 months, with the gladness to see our friends still alive, safe, and inspired to practice. And it brings us a sense of gladness, familiarity, and a sense of belonging on the inside. And at this point, we withdraw our awareness within the space of our body to a place inside ourselves that feels free of any worries and concerns. Although there may be so much going on around us, but today we set aside a special day for ourselves, a full moon day, which in Buddhist tradition is special because it doubles up as the day of enlightenment of the Buddha. And in the Theravada tradition, it is also considered to be the Buddha's birthday and the day of his final passing away into parinirvana. It's a full moon day this month, marked exceptionally as a super flower blood moon, which has been photographed all around the world for its reddish-orange tinge, owing to a lunar eclipse and the reflection of the sunrises and sunsets in the Earth's atmosphere projected onto the surface of the eclipsed moon, or the eclipsed moon, and spectacularly visible all across the Pacific. It is called a flower moon in reference to all the flowers of spring blooming at this time. And because it's the full moon of May, although historically speaking it was 2,519 years ago, today is also the anniversary of the Buddha achieving enlightenment. So the feeling around us is particularly energized today with that sense of possibility of enlightenment for each one of us. And especially with a positive state of mind, all participating today, even though we might be separated by distance, but we are virtually together because we have not let social distancing or the pandemic get in the way of joining together to cultivate good deeds or continuing to give support to our local temples and meditation centers. In fact, our time of joining the meditation virtually has only widened our community to extend across borders from the local to the global, and allow our meditation centers to cooperate and cross-pollinate, to share the best each center has to offer. So we conjure up a sense of happiness, joy, and freedom in our mind, while putting aside any unwanted thoughts. We nurture the sense of happiness and joy within ourselves, which we can grow and expand within ourselves until there's no space left in our mind for any other sort of thought. And at this point, for those of you who already have your favorite method of meditation, you can practice that meditation now. But for those of you who are new to meditation, or those who favor the Dhammakaya approach, I would invite you to imagine that inside your body is just an empty space, or a hollow cavity, without any organs or tissues, muscles or bones. Within the space of your body, as an anchor for the mind, you might like to picture a bright object, such as the full moon shining, the sun shining, or maybe a bright, shining star. Especially on this day of the Buddha's enlightenment, you might like to think of a picture of the Buddha in meditation. If you can't see that object, even the feeling will work just as well. You may feel as if you have one of those objects floating within the space of your body. And you allow the object to float gently down within the space of your body, following the breath down to the deepest point of the breath at the diaphragm, the seventh base of the mind as we know it in our Dhammakaya tradition. But anywhere in that general area which feels comfortable for you will work well. We maintain our mind gently with that inner object as continuously as we can, for as long as we can, not letting our mind wander off anywhere else, if we can help it. If the mind should wander, as inevitably happens, we just bring it back again to the center each and every time. If the inner object disappears, we can think of a new one. If thoughts interrupt our meditation, we do our best to ignore them rather than elaborate on them. If we find the mind is plagued by thoughts, if we find our brain is like the proverbial hamster wheel, then we might find it useful to make use of a traditional mantra such as hearing the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, coming up from the center of our body over and over again, until the mind starts to gain independence from those thoughts, until the spaces between the thoughts start to last longer than the thoughts themselves. The full moon of May is known in Buddhism as Vesak Day or Visakha Puja Day. It is a festival of world significance, and just a few hours ago, Antonio Gutierrez, Secretary General of the United Nations, issued a message to mark the occasion, praising Buddhism for its contributions it's made to human spirituality and culture for more than 2.5 millennia. He recognized that Buddhists and non-Buddhists alike continue to find inspiration, and the Buddha's message of honesty, compassion, and respect for all living beings as we face the lasting impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is clearer than ever that humility and deep empathy are essential for all of our well-being and that of our planet. So as we meditate today, we make the resolve to ourselves to continue the work together, to build lives of peace and dignity for all on a healthy planet. And on the full moon day of May, we think a lot about the unity of the meditation community as we gather together from our temples and meditation centers from various different traditions, of necessity separated by social distancing, but today unified in our intent to join together for full moon meditation. There are many practices for our well-being we can do together, even without being physically in the same location. There are many benefits that arise from coming together for full moon days such as this. It encourages the unity because there are elements to the practice that all meditations share in common. In a traditional Buddhist scripture called the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the shared part of the practice is known as the Ekalyana, which means the single and the beautiful path that can lead all practitioners to the end of mental impurities. Following this path to completion is what the Buddha already did as a trailblazer 2,519 years ago. And today is a day when we think of the possibility for us to be able to do the same and to be close to the Buddha, which is shorthand for saying the inner Buddha, or the Buddha's body of enlightenment on this day, especially through our practice. If we want to be close to the inner Buddha, if we want to see the inner Buddha for ourselves, or to gain the vision known as the supreme sight of the inner Buddha, or Dasanuttariya, it will give all of us an important first-hand part in keeping alive the enlightenment experience through this full moon meditation. We should keep in mind the words of the Buddha recorded for us in the Sanghati Sutta, where he said that even if a practitioner were to cling onto the hem of my robe and follow close behind me step by step, if that practitioner still remains covetous, filled with passions, malevolent-minded, corrupt in thought, unmindful, uncomprehending, and unconcentrated, with a wandering mind and uncontrolled faculties, that practitioner would still be far from me. That is to say that anyone not working to train their mind cannot really be close to the inner Buddha, even though they might be sitting right next to the Buddha, because someone with an uncontrolled mind will not manage to see the Dharma, which is shorthand for saying that they will be unable to see the inner sphere of purity. If they do not see the inner sphere of purity, then they will never see the inner Buddha. But for any practitioner, even if they live 1,000 miles away, even if they've only got a virtual connection to the full moon meditation ceremony, even if they are in another country far away from where the Buddha is living, but they are not covetous, not full of passion, not malevolent-minded, uncorrupt in thoughts, if they have mindfulness established, clearly comprehending, concentrated, and of unified mind, then that person will be close to the inner Buddha. That practitioner will be able to see the inner Buddha because first of all they will manage to see the inner sphere of purity, enabling them to see the inner Buddha according to the proper sequence. And in this respect, I would like to say that any form of meditation is something which you can do at home, even if you are unable to go to the temple or in person, even if they don't let you out of your house because you're on lockdown, even if you practice meditation. But if you practice meditation, you are close to the inner Buddha. In my own tradition, we understand the word Ekalyana to mean the seventh base of the mind, a point in the body which leads deeper towards nirvana. But any sort of meditation that internalizes the mind within the body can be considered proper meditation that will converge with the Ekalyana and will ultimately lead to the inner eye of wisdom. As many of you are familiar with the chanting of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, you will recall that when we develop vision, or jakku, it will come together with a special form of knowledge, or jnana. It also comes together with a special wisdom, or panya, and leads to special insight, or vicca. a process which the Buddha exemplified for us 2,519 years ago. On the occasion of the full moon meditation, in order to share in the unity of practice known as Ekalayana and to have the best chance to gain the supreme sight of the inner Buddha, I would like to encourage everyone to practice the Dharma without end. Continue to be inspired to follow in the footsteps of the enlightened ones. Whatever challenges life and health concerns may throw at you. So now, for a few moments, we continue to focus the mind gently at the center of the body until we come to the time for the candle lighting ceremony. So now that we feel pure in body, speech, and mind, and our peace energy becomes as one, we continue to maintain our awareness at the center of the body. We continue to be in that ocean of peace energy while we slowly open our eyes in order to light our candles. So it's now the time for us to illuminate the world by lighting little candles that we have prepared. Feeling that candlelight radiating warm and bright. Candle symbolizes our inner light, our peace energy, or our positive intention. now that we have lit our candles, let us return our focus to the center once again. Let us gently close our eyes, bringing the candlelight inside, feeling the way the candle illuminates our center, its light, its warmth, now radiating outwards from within, just like our peace energy arising from the standstill of the mind. And we draw into the light, even though we may be physically separate. Here inside our center, we connect with ourselves and the collective consciousness. May all sentient beings be as one. So from there, let us illuminate our inner candlelight, shining so bright. Let it radiate all around. Let it grow, expand, covering ourselves, our entire home and neighborhood. That light is attached with our positive intention, our loving kindness, our wish to see everyone sharing that state of peace and happiness. We let it grow further, expanding until it covers the whole city, reaching out to all sentient beings, all people, no matter where they are. May all beings be touched by inner peace, love, and compassion. Let our inner peace wipe away all the negativity, all negative elements that affect the world. When our mind touches the center of the light, it grows further across our space, throughout the world, above and beyond, borders and boundaries. Let us be like a full moon, selflessly sharing its light, its warmth, its compassion, to everyone, every being, every creature sharing this planet with us. The tide of peace energy and our inner light change the world toward a state of happiness. May all sadness, sorrow, and violence be swept away, while allowing the beauty of compassion to blossom in every person's mind. Let us shine our inner light all around, throughout the universe. Here, where there is only a little candlelight, even though it is tiny, but collectively the power is unfathomable. It is more than enough to share, to reach out to everybody, everyone, everywhere. So we let it expand further to wherever there is darkness, because light can always overpower and transform that darkness into a state of happiness once again. So let us shine forth this brightness from the center, inside to the outside world, for a few more moments in silence. And let us reach out to all of our loved ones, family members, relatives and friends, wherever they are, whether they are deceased or alive, feeling them at our center and sharing this peace energy along with our bright kindness, with our good wish for them all to be happy. Let us share peace energy to anyone we may have offended in the past. May this peace energy be our apology. And in return, may our inner light reach out to anyone who may have offended us before, may have hurt us, and let this light be our forgiveness. From here on, only positive wishes will be radiated from ourselves towards all people. So let us reach out to anyone who has been in darkness. Let us share peace, light, as it is turned into gratitude, appreciation, and collectively let us share this light of peace energy throughout the whole world. And now that we've shared the peace energy and loving kindness all around, slowly we bring our attention back to the center of our body as before. Reconnecting with the inner brightness at the center of ourself as something that we can maintain even beyond the meditation itself. And when we're ready, we can slowly come to the end of our meditation and gradually open our eyes again. If we feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly start changing to a more comfortable position before slowly finishing our meditation practice. So are you all still there? Are you all ready for hearing the wisdom talk?
Ready?
Okay. So they asked me to talk a little bit today about a topic called the Buddha as a great teacher, which sort of is a little bit sort of Buddhist. So those of you who are not particularly Buddhist might want to sort of prepare yourself to for some new information, let's say. But the way I'll do it is to give a little bit of a talk as a way of explaining the a little slideshow that will play along as I'm explaining it. Okay, so it may not link in directly, but it gives you an idea. And I think it's better than just like watching the monk talking. To give you a little bit of background to why the Buddha was an exemplary teacher. So here we go. So the biography of the Buddha usually tells the life of Siddhartha Gautama, all the way from his birth, through his renunciation of the royal palace, his enlightenment and propagation of Buddhism, to his parinibbana. In this presentation of the life of the Buddha, we will have gone beyond his final lifetime to tell a little of his striving for perfections through countless lifetimes as a bodhisattva leading up to the final lifetime when he was able to become enlightened as the Buddha. The life of the Buddha can be studied from many angles. But here we will concentrate on the life of the Buddha as it brought benefit to the world and those around him, especially how his teaching and example brought them to the ultimate happiness of nirvana. In overview, the Buddha brought benefit to the world in 3 different ways: benefit to the beings of the world, benefit to his own relatives, and benefit towards Buddhism. And we'll look in detail at each of the sort of benefits in turn. The benefits the Buddha brought to the world did not include merely humans and animals, but even beings in the realms beyond what the naked eye can see, such as beings in the unfortunate realms, angels, and Brahmas. In the weeks immediately after his enlightenment, the Buddha reflected that the truths he had attained were profound. There would not be every being who would be able to appreciate those truths in their profundity. Some had more capacity to understand the truth about the world than others. The Buddha distinguished 4 different categories of beings, comparing them to 4 types of lotus. The first group was the lotus blossom above the water. This sort of lotus can be compared to beings that are keen in their faculties and whose mental defilements are few. Such beings can swiftly understand the Dharma as soon as they can hear a teaching. These are the beings most quickly able to benefit from the Buddha's teaching. The second group was the lotus blossom at the water level. This sort of lotus can be compared to beings with a good disposition, easy to instruct, and who can understand the Dharma after a little clarification. These are the beings who, with a little effort, can benefit from the Buddha's teaching. The third group was the lotus blossom just beneath the water. This sort of lotus can be compared to beings with little wisdom, who can understand the Buddha's teachings, but only after a lengthy exposition. These are beings who, with considerable effort, can still benefit from the Buddha's teaching. The last group, however, was the lotus bud still beneath the mud of the river bottom. This sort of lotus can be compared to beings who are dull in their faculties, of bad disposition, and difficult to instruct. These are beings who, even with a great investment of effort, have hardly any chance to benefit from the Buddha's teaching. In teaching, the Buddha focused mostly of his effort on the first 3 categories. As a result, many were able to benefit from the Dharma, becoming enlightened in his footsteps. It was these 3 groups who gave the Buddha the compassion to teach the truth for the benefit of others in the world. And the Buddha made his teaching activities part of his daily routine for 5 regular parts of every day throughout his 45-year dispensation. In the morning, he would go an alms round every day with his bowl to give common people the opportunity to practice generosity by donating food into his bowl. The alms round activity is said to be a way of perpetuating the customs of all the Buddhas, sets a good example for future generations of monks, and gives all lay people, rich or poor, the opportunity to accumulate merit for themselves. Going on alms round rather than merely waiting for donations of food in the temple, even when the Buddha was aged or ill, is said to demonstrate the great compassion of the Buddha. In the early evening, the Buddha would teach the general public. Wherever the Buddha was in residence, local villagers and people from the neighborhood would come to him in the evening to pay respect and make offerings. The topic of his teaching would often be the progressive sermon, which talked about the importance of generosity, self-discipline, the advantages of rebirth in heaven, the harm of sense pleasure, and the benefits of ordination. In expounding the Dharma, the Buddha was more interested in the helping of the audience attain the stages of enlightenment than in what they had brought to offer him. Indeed, every day members of the public attain the stages of enlightenment in the Buddha's footsteps as a result of his instruction. In the late evening, the Buddha would give teachings to his community of monks on the subjects that would lead them to be content with the monastic lifestyle and inspire them to train themselves to break free from all suffering, like he had done himself. These times would also be the opportunity to clarify any doubts the monks might have in their minds concerning their monastic practice. During the night, the Buddha would answer the questions from celestial beings who came to earth from the fortunate realms to seek audience from the Buddha at a time when most people were asleep. Some would ask questions. Some would deliver their own discourses to the Buddha. Some came to listen to the sermons addressed to others. The Buddha would answer their questions or establish them with the Triple Gem as their refuge. Most of the celestial beings coming for audience with the Buddha also attained the stages of enlightenment. And this is why in the chanting in homage to the Buddha, we often hear the words, "The Buddha is a teacher of all human and celestial beings." Before dawn, he would meditate to survey the world with his Buddha eye in search of anyone ripe for awakening. In this way, he would know whom his teachings would benefit the most as he went out to teach each day. Sometimes the Buddha's ministry to those who needed his teachings would take him far afield. One example of such ministry is the teacher intervening to give a teaching to the notorious robber Angulimala before he was able to harm his mother. The Buddha taught in this way throughout the 45 years of his ministry. Even up to the last day of his life, he did not tire of teaching and helped the ascetic Supata to reach enlightenment only hours before he himself entered parinibbana. The second sort of benefit the Buddha brought to the world was benefit to his own family and relations. His father was King Suddhodana of the city of Kapilavastu, whereas his mother was Queen Maya of the kingdom of Devadaha. He never forgot his debt of gratitude to the family who had raised him, and repaid that debt of gratitude by instructing his family to the point that they too could reach enlightenment or be ordained in his footsteps. Shortly after his enlightenment, he returned to his hometown at the invitation of his father, King Suddhodana. The Buddha visited Kapilavastu with 20,000 monks. And through his teaching, King Suddhodana and his relatives were able to attain the initial stages of enlightenment called stream entry, and take the Triple Gem as their refuge. The next day, he instructed his father further in the Dharma, to the point his father reached a yet higher stage of enlightenment called the once-returner. Later, before King Suddhodana passed away, he instructed his father on his deathbed until he could attain full enlightenment and enter upon nirvana at death. He taught Princess Yasodhara, his former wife, explaining to her about how they had pursued perfection side by side for 100,000 aeons. All that time ago, it had been Yasodhara who had been his inspiration to do good deeds. Hearing these words, she no longer grieved losing him, but instead was able to attain enlightenment at the level of stream entry. Later, she and almost 100,000 other relatives ordained as nuns and attained arahantship and entered nirvana. When the Buddha returned to teach Dharma to his relatives, Princess Yasodhara sent their son, Prince Rahula, to ask for his father's inheritance. The Buddha, however, saw that no wealth could compare with the transcendental inheritance of nirvana. Therefore, his legacy to Prince Rahula was to allow him to ordain as the first ever novice in Buddhism. The Buddha went on to instruct his son until Rahula was able to attain full enlightenment and become the foremost of his disciples in his studies. In addition to this, many of the Buddha's relatives joined the monastic order, some being the foremost amongst the disciples in particular skills, and still known down to the present day for the excellence in propagating Buddhism. One particular example of his concern for his own relatives was to settle a dispute between rival factions of his own family. In those days, the kingdom of his father's side of the family, Kapilavastu, and that of his mother, Devadaha, were separated by a river, and the river was called Rohini. People from both kingdoms had to share their river as their main water source. During a drought, the river water became so scarce that quarrels over the water became so violent that the army had to be called in on both sides of the river. The Buddha realized he could prevent the dispute and bloodshed, so he went to the place on the river and admonished them to see the importance of the love between relatives, saying friendship should be thicker than blood. He asked them whether the drinking water was more precious than each other's blood, and they agreed that it was not. So they came to their senses and settled the dispute over the water in a peaceful way. On another occasion, there was a quarrel between his relatives and the prince of Kosala, since his relatives, the Sakyas, looked down on a certain prince called Vitutapa of Kosala on account of his imperfect provenance. As soon as he ascended to the throne of Kosala, he marched against the Sakya kingdom, and the Buddha intervened, waiting for the approaching Kosalan army beneath a leafless tree. When Vitutapa saw the Buddha, he paid respect to him. The Buddha taught him that the refreshing shade of a tree ought to be like the love between relatives. The prince realized the Buddha's message and ordered his army to retreat instead of proceeding with the conflict. The third sort of benefit which the Buddha brought to the world were his duties in establishing Buddhism. After his enlightenment, the Buddha realized establishing Buddhism meant both spiritual work on himself and laying down a system by which Buddhism could continue to prosper as his legacy. Even though enlightened, the Buddha continued the spiritual work on himself by meditating in solitude frequently, sometimes for 7 days at a time, sometimes for 15 days, according to the circumstances. His example shows that although he did a lot to serve and benefit society, he never forgot his commitment to do spiritual work on himself too. For the benefit of others, he set in motion the wheel of the Dharma, established Buddhism, and laid down the means by which it could be perpetuated before he himself passed away. In the beginning of his dispensation, he ordained the monastic disciples in person. Later, he delegated his authority for enlarging Buddhism, allowing elder monks to ordain monks and novices themselves. Because he had a long-term vision of Buddhism, extending beyond his own death, he laid down the structures so that monks could look after themselves, and the teachings and disciplines he left behind could overcome the doubts of monks, even in his absence. He established a system of seniority for monks whereby those ordaining earlier should be respected by those who ordain later. As the elder monks took responsibility for teaching their juniors would take responsibility to care for and support their elders. Furthermore, the Buddha recognized the important roles of the 4 different sectors of the Buddhist community: the monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen. Monks had the duty not only to train themselves, but also to protect and spread the teachings, instructing the nuns, laymen, and laywomen. Unfortunately, the community of nuns does not exist anymore in the traditional sense. However, for laymen and laywomen, it was clear that the Buddha meant that they too should cultivate the perfections through generosity, keeping the precepts and meditation, while giving their support to the community of monks in terms of the 4 requisites, while protecting the monks in case of danger. All these structures laid down by the Buddha are expressions of the Buddha's responsibility for the perpetuation of Buddhism. So in conclusion, why the Buddha is a great teacher, I can summarize what you've seen in the little presentation just now is that the Buddha was a person who never turned anyone away who wanted to study spiritual teachings with him. Anyone who made an effort to learn, that he would help them. And we saw that summarized there as the 3 top types of lotus: above the water, on the water, beneath the water. Those who made an effort to study, then he would teach them, however much effort it took. And he divided his responsibilities into 3 different things: serving others, serving his own family, and also laying down the infrastructure by which the tradition he started would survive him beyond death. So he taught throughout his life, he taught nearly all day long, and as a result of this, then the teachings which he laid down are still with us to the present day. So hopefully you can see that even if you fancy yourself as being a teacher of Buddhism, it's important, if you want to be like the Buddha, that you must continue to work on yourself alongside sharing what you know with others. So for today, I think I will probably come to the end of my little Dhamma talk today, which brings me nicely up to 7:25 at least Pacific time, and leaving a little bit of time for reflections and feedback. So I hand back over to the MCs now.
All right. Thank you, Venerable Nicholas, for leading the meditation and also giving us the wisdom talk about the Buddha and how he was a great teacher. I hope that everyone was able to follow along with Venerable Nicholas and his slideshow showing, the different or the many importance of the Buddha and how he was able to work on himself and, share his knowledge with others as well, and making sure that his teachings will not only stick around when he's around, but also after he is gone as well. So thank you for that, Venerable. Let's see. Does anyone have any questions for Venerable Nicholas? If you do, of course, you could always type it in the chat section of Zoom. For those of you on Facebook or YouTube, you could type it in the comment section as well. A lot of people here on Zoom are thanking you, Venerable Nicholas, and I'm sure you're following along with the comments in the chat box. Kat said, Buddha makes me want to strive for better knowledge and enlightenment. Yes.
Yeah, and also, I think it's important to note that, the Buddha he wasn't some, godly figure or, something within our imagination, that he was just someone like us. And for him to, achieve all these things, we might, we might kind of have these preconceived notions that, the Buddha was just some different, figure. But honestly, it's like for us to see the humanity within, within all of this, and to see that his accomplishments are within our grasp too, that it's the things that he was teaching, it's very simple things. It's to calm down and to reflect, and to be able to take that time outside the craziness of our days to actually center our minds.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Question for Venerable Nicholas from Bart in Boston. Can you let us know where we could get your books? That one will be for you, Venerable.
I guess Amazon. Yeah, or if you search for PDFs, you can find a lot of them as well.
Okay. And then another question, or what names? I think it's intuitive Buddhism.
Oh, yeah. That one's not really about practice. It's more about diversity in Buddhists, which is more of an academic sort of idea. But it's interesting if you want to know how different personalities of Buddhists approach their practice. For example, how come all Buddhists don't just meditate all the time? Some like to stay at home and practice. Some like to go to a temple and practice. Why is this, for example? But on teachings and so on, you also find quite a lot I've done, which are more like sort of teaching materials on Buddhism and meditation as well. See a question there also. If we want to connect with the Buddha in our meditation, what should we do? Yeah. First stage, if you want to see the inner Buddha, is first you need to see the Dharma. And Dharma in the technique of meditation we've been practicing is that you need to see the diamond light sphere inside your meditation first. And that will open the pathway of the Ekalyana I was describing in the meditation, which will eventually lead you to have that supreme sight of the inner Buddha. Hopefully.
And in order to see that, every person varies, correct, Venerable?
Yeah, you need to find your own way to that. And the important thing is, before you get to the Dharma, then you need to have no thoughts left in your meditation. So coming to the point in your meditation where your mind is still and centered, and you feel happy with your meditation, then the rest will happen by itself.
Okay. I hope that answered your question, Kat, about connecting with the Buddha in meditation. If anyone else has a question, you go ahead and type it. We have a few more minutes, probably one more minute with Venerable Nicholas. I know it's 7:30, so we're almost going to end our program here. So if no other questions, Ron, any last minute comments? Venerable, any last minute comments before we say goodbye for this evening?
Yeah, I hope it wasn't too much for everyone today, but I tried to give you value for money, let's say. So you can, if you don't understand all at once, then you can go back and I see it's on YouTube. You can sort of go and skim back through it and watch it another 2 or 3 times, and maybe you'll be able to understand it after that. Yeah.
Okay, one more quick question that just came in. Let me see. How can I inspire myself to meditate?
Yeah, this is a good question. Not that the other questions weren't good, of course, but I think you have to ask yourself what makes you want to meditate. And I hope the answer is nothing. So you have to ask yourself what makes it a pleasure for me to meditate. So if you can answer that question to yourself, that will probably be a good place to start, so that you feel a sense of willing to meditate. Because if you're just meditating because out of a sense of duty or because the monk told you to, then generally the results will not be very interesting. But if you meditate or you try to set the environment for yourself by where you feel inspired and willing to meditate, then that will help you to want to sit for meditation more regularly and for longer. So it might be making a nice corner of your home to meditate in, or changing the time of day so you don't feel too sleepy, or having instrumental music in the background. Whatever works for you, then go for it. But I hope the answer is nothing makes me feel inspired to meditate. Otherwise, you probably have a serious problem.